So, after my last club badges video, I received a few comments asking for other badges, and who am I to disappoint my subscribers? So welcome to part 2 of the story of club badges from around the world. Again, I'll be picking out a few that I like, sprinkling some of your suggestions and look at some controversial ones. So without further ado, starting alphabetically with Bournemouth. Bournemouth's badge is just a standard shield with a ball and a dude, but this silhouette is apparently Dickie Dosset, a forward who played for them in the late 50s and early 60s. The badge was introduced in 1971 after the club changed their name from Bournemouth and Boscombe Athletic, and the stripes represent their club shirt at the time. Cagliari. The Cagliari badge is quite interesting. It shows 4 Moors, as Sardinia were for a while ruled by the Moors. Now, I totally didn't need to Google what Moors are, as I already knew that they're historical figures, but the term came to be known as anyone who had dark skin. Their first badge in 1931 shows them with red lips and facing to the left, and they've faced right since 2015 after new owner Tommaso Giolini wanted them to symbolise belief and hope in the future, and apparently looking to the right symbolises that or something. The red stands for the Royal House of Savoy, which ruled Sardinia, and the blue represents the sky and water apparently, but the impact of the Moors in the region can also be seen on the badges of other island clubs in the region such as Ajaccio, the other one, and Bastia. Cardiff. No club badge video would be complete without a bit of controversy. Cardiff owner Vincent Tan sorted out the club finances and helped get them back to the top flight, and he then had the cheek to think he could do whatever he wanted with the club. So in summer 2012, Tan the man decided to revamp the club brand. He changed the club colours from blue to red, as red is considered lucky in East Asia, and launched a new badge, one where the bluebird was pushed aside by the Welsh dragon. This was the first time that the dragon had taken up more space than the bird on the badge. His reasons for all this nonsense? He thought that it would expand interest in the club outside of Wales, and that the dragon is more recognisable in Asia and therefore easier to sell. Because why should a football team in Cardiff have to pander to the people of Cardiff, right? Cue angry protests against the decisions, including by various supporters clubs, and after the club were promoted to the Premier League in 2013, Tan was finally forced to give it up. Halfway through the 2014-15 season, he changed the club strip back to blue, and in March 2015 a new badge was launched. Vincent compromised by just adding a red detail to the blue badge, but even then he hadn't finished messing about, as he changed the Welsh dragon to an Asian dragon. So you might wonder where the bluebirds came from. Well, in 1927 Cardiff became still the only team from outside England to win the FA Cup, at the time wearing the city crest. At the time of the victory, the club were called the Bluebirds, after the popular play of the time called, well, the Bluebird, by some Belgian bloke, and many of their old badges contained a daffodil, which is the national flower of Wales. Chelsea. The Chelsea lion is quite well known within the football brotherhood and sisterhood, but the lion was relatively late to the party, as it wasn't introduced until 1953. Until that point, an image of a Chelsea pensioner represented the club. What the hell is one of those, you ask? In 1682, the Royal Hospital Chelsea was founded for veterans of the British Army. Isn't it beautiful? And Chelsea FC chose to honour them, leading to the club's first nickname, the Pensioners. The pensioner represented the club until 1952, when this hideous thing became a temporary solution while they figured out their new badge. This absolute work of art, consisting of the club initials on a blue background, was suggested by new manager Ted Drake, and it was around this time that the nickname the Blues began to take hold. After this fine specimen, the Blue Lion made an appearance. The lion was inspired by the Abbot of Westminster, hence the staff, and was taken from the family crest of club president Earl Cadogan. This badge remained until 1986, not long after owner Ken Bates bought the club for a huge £1 fee. He simplified and modernised the lion, and in 2005, just a couple of years after Roman Abramovich took over the club for £139,999,999 more than Bates, the club reintroduced the traditional lion, as 2005 was the club's centennial year, hence the reintroduction of just a modernised version of the badge from the 50s. And the pensioners are still seen at Chelsea today. If we ignore the fact that the majority of their squad are on 85-year contracts and will be pensioners themselves by the time their contracts end, the pensioners stood to attention as a sign of respect when the club won their first title under Abramovich, and the red blob on their shirt collar in the 2010-11 season was also there to honour the pensioners. Deportivo de La Coruña. There's not a lot to say about the Deportivo badge, as it's hardly changed for 112 years. So why are you including it then, I hear you angry lot ask? Because I found it interesting, okay? This is a knight's belt which wraps around the pennant of the Sala Calvert gym, which is where the club was founded. Their badge in 1911 actually contained the gym name, with the knight's belt first appearing around 1908. Galatasaray. Now, don't mind if I get any dates wrong, as there's a lot of different sources and dates for Gala. It was around 1925 that they adopted a badge which combines the Arabic letters Gain and Shin. which I've probably butchered the pronunciation of. After the language reformed around the 30s, the badge was updated as the Arabic alphabet was replaced with the European version, which boggles my brain that a team changed their badge because the whole alphabet changed. But anyway, the new version was supposed to echo the original Arab version, highlighting Istanbul's geographical position between two worlds, Europe and Asia. Fulham. Fulham's ground, Craven Cottage, fascinates me, to be honest, as the ground has an actual cottage within the ground, which these days acts as dressing rooms. And the cottage itself was on the club badge in the 30s, which cracks me up as the cottage is shown to be some knackered rundown place with damage and cracks everywhere. Hang on, let's clean this place up. That's better. A few years later in 72, this little number was introduced, which only lasted for 5 years but became the historical inspiration for the crest of today. Since 2001, the year that Fulham first appeared in the Premier League, or Premiership as it was, the club badge has just been simple initials in a simple crest, and a press release from the club said, "The emblem emphasises our origins." Lovely stuff. Hamburg. Hamburg were founded as recently as 1919 through a merger of not 2 but 3 clubs, FC Falke Eppendorf, FC Germania and Hamburger FC. Their first badge was a combination of the 3 merged clubs and didn't last very long. Not really surprised, it looks crap. But I've always wondered why they have this boring, dull badge, but it turns out to be not that dull. The white and black theme was taken directly from Germania, one of the merged teams, and the white diamond is quite interesting. You see, Hamburg is on the River Elbe, which flows into the North Sea, and the port of Hamburg is the largest port in Germany and the 4th busiest port in the whole of Europe. As a result, the white diamond on the badge is from the Blue Peter flag, which is a flag that a ship puts up when it's about to sail. Well, apparently the exact meaning is technically, all persons should report on board as the vessel is about to proceed to sea, but that's a bit too posh for me, so we'll stick with my version. We want to set sail or re-up. Hull City. Hull were founded in 1904 and soon took on the nickname the Tigers due to their amber and black shirts. But it wasn't until 1947 that the club had their first tiger badge to embrace their nickname. In the mid to late 70s, the club was represented only by the club initials, and in the late 90s the badge was updated, which was designed by James Hinchcliffe, the son of one of the club's earlier owners. The badge shows the nearby Humber Bridge, and the 3 crowns apparently symbolise the 3 wise men. And talking of wise men, owner Assam Allen was not a very wise man. In 2003, to mark their move from Boothby Park to the KCOM Stadium, a new badge was launched, including both the club name and the nickname. So far, so good. But by 2014, Allen had long wanted to change the name of the club from Hull City to Hull Tigers. He felt that City was too common and that the nickname Tigers would be easier to market abroad. Cue more anger with fans, led by City Till We Die, handing in petitions to the FA. Well, I guess that Tigers Till We Die doesn't quite have the same ring to it. In April 2014, Adam's case went to the FA, who decided that that's exactly what he was allowed to do with the club's sweet FA, and denied his request to change the club name. So what did Adam do? Like a stroppy kid, he changed the badge, removing the team name. Fans were not consulted about this change, which also went against a promise in a press release the year before, and as you can imagine, it went down like a lead balloon. But maybe the new badge would bring luck. Not quite. Their first season with this new badge ended with relegation from the Premier League. But fast forward to 2019 and the club reintroduced the club name on the badge, a badge which was created in consultation with the supporters in a process involving 7,000 fans. So everything turned out okay in the end. Inter Milan. Inter's badge is very similar to their first badge from 1908. What's interesting is that the club was founded after a disagreement within AC Milan, or the Milan Football and Cricket Club as they were known then. Milan were mega racists and didn't allow foreign players to join the team, so a group left to create Football Club Internazionale, a club where all foreigners would be welcome, hence the name, as the club were international. But in the late 20s, Italy's fascist rulers didn't particularly like Inter's free attitude towards foreigners and forced them into a merger and change their name, so a new badge was introduced and the old style badge was reintroduced at the end of the Second World War. For a period in the late 70s they had a badge containing a snake, which was from the crest of the Visconti family who controlled Milan in the 13th century, hence why Alfa Romeo have a snake in their logo as they were founded in Milan. And the star in the badge was for their 10th league title, which they won in 1966. Lazio. Lazio have been criticised for their use of an eagle in the badge, as it's seen as a fascist symbol, even though an eagle was first used in their badge in 1912, 9 years before Mussolini even founded the National Fascist Party. The eagle was inspired by the Roman Empire and is also strongly linked with the Greek god Zeus, as the club founders wanted to honour the legacy of ancient Greece, which also explains the club's colours, white and blue. But in 1927 their badge did include a fascist symbol, the fasces. two wooden sticks bundled together with an axe, as they were forced to change under the fascist regime. And if you look at their kit from 2015 and the one from 2018, you'll see they used the eagle on the shirt, which was taken from the badge that they used back in '82, and their current badge is just a modernised version of their first badge from 1912. Leeds United. Leeds' first proper badge was just an owl, which was taken from the city crest, which had three of them, quite ironic as the Owls, Sheffield Wednesday, currently play in the same league. Then in '72, manager Don Revie believed that birds mean bad luck, so he changed the badge to only show the club's initials. This only lasted for a year when the club introduced a badge known as Smiley. Smiley's still a strong seller to this day as it's associated with the club's golden age. Yeah, their golden age. In 1981, Umbro took over as Leeds' kit supplier and the badge was changed to show a peacock. This from the club's nickname, the Peacocks, which itself comes from the original name of Elland Road, which was known as the Old Peacock Ground. But Leeds had also had its share of badges which were hated by fans. In 1998 they released this, which was criticised by fans as they felt it lacked any real history. You can argue that the club's initials are written in the same style as their badge from '72, so there is a bit of history, but thankfully for fans the next badge quickly became ancient history as the club was smashed by angry fans protesting. You see, in 2018 the club introduced this, and Leeds fans be like... Then the fans were like... The club chickened out, so this badge came in, and Leeds fans were like... Manchester City. City used to have this badge, which they introduced in 1997. The eagle is the old symbol of Manchester. The three lines represent the city's three rivers, Irwell, Irk and Medlock, and the Latin waffle means pride in battle. So the stars, well, they meant absolutely nothing, they were just there for decoration. Then in 2016, the club introduced this bad boy, which was designed in consultation with fans and was the first to contain the club's year of founding. So where did the fans, with the help of football historian Gary James, get this spark of inspiration from? How did they come up with such a beautiful badge? Where did this artistic vision come from? Well, it's pretty much a direct copy of their badge from 1972. Parma. Parma have got quite a history, so strap in. This badge came in 1970 after the club went bankrupt and they were taken over by AC Parmense. Then in 2003 their owners, the dairy club Parma, collapsed with debts of €14 billion, which 21 years later is still Europe's biggest ever bankruptcy. And funnily enough, the same year the club went bankrupt again. The team completely changed its image, changing from Parma AC to Parma FC. And despite all these issues, they secured European football in 2014. Yay! But the very next day they were banned from Europe due to financial problems. Boo! The debts grew, and in 2015, guess what happened? Yes, the club went bankrupt again, their second time in 11 years. They were forced to make a new start in Serie D that season and were eventually promoted back to Serie A in 2018. But rewind a little to 2016, a year after their 300th bankruptcy, a new badge was introduced. This one, which means that throughout their history, Parma have used these three badges, which I'm sure you'll agree are pretty much unrecognisable from each other. Red Star Belgrade. Red Star, or Crvena Zvezda to give them their proper name, were formed at the end of the Second World War from an anti-fascist sports group for young people. At the time, the dictator Tito dissolved a number of football clubs, one of them was SK Yugoslavia, and Red Star rose to take over the old club, including the stadium and players. Where'd they come up with the name? Well, the club's name was chosen by the government, and the badge contains the communist symbol, the Red Star, which is also on the Yugoslavian flag. Their current badge is almost the same as the one used in 1950, which is the badge they had when they won the European Cup in 1991. Sevilla. The Sevilla badge contains initials which are included in one of their first badges back in 1905. At that time a different badge was used for admin, and it's these initials which are seen on the current badge. The badge also shows three saints. This geezer on the left is Saint Isidore, who was a bishop in the town in the 7th century. His brother Saint Leander is stood on the right, and on the throne in the middle, being selfish, not letting them sit down, is Ferdinand III of Castile, who also apparently inspired the colours somehow. For the year in 2013 they used this thing, which is an updated version of badges they used in the 1900s and 1910s, but I guess Sevilla fans are just happy that they didn't reuse the one they had in 1908, which was just awful. Tottenham. Tottenham took their inspiration from an angry knight. I'll explain. In 1921, when they won their second FA Cup, it was the first time they'd worn an emblem with a cockerel. The idea for this came from noble knight Sir Henry Percy. which sounds like a very noble name, I love it, who lived 600 years ago and was better known by his nickname Sir Harry Hotspur. It is he who they took the name from, and he was named Hotspur due to his habit of driving his spurs into his horses when charging. He was also interested in cockfighting, and in 1909 a bronze statue of a cockerel was erected above White Hart Lane's west stand. In 1951, after the club's first league title, the cockerel went on a bit of a diet, lost a bit of weight and has stayed pretty much consistent ever since. After using this one for a little bit, which I won't bore you with, it's very Spursy, that is not very exciting, they introduced this sleek design in 2006, which was modelled on the badge from 1967. West Bromwich Albion. The Baggies badge shows a throstle, and whatever you do, don't ever call it a bird or a thrush or anything else, because a Baggies fan would absolutely fucking chin you. But the throstle was initially sat on a crossbar, but was later changed to a hawthorn branch when the club moved to the Hawthorns in 1900. A throstle, was suggested in the late 1880s by club secretary Tom Smith, as one of the little rascals had set up its home in the players' changing room. In the 1970s, the badge was redesigned to represent a caged bird. This had a double meaning, as the cage also represented an A for Albion. Very smart. After a few different designs in 2006, the club introduced this with the team name spelled out for the first time, and the branch was replaced by just a few leaves and berries, with the bird sat on top. Throstle. West Ham United. The Hammers' old badges contained Berlin Castle, which was said to have been the home of Anne Boleyn, the second wife of Henry VIII, until he killed her. Not even the only wife he killed. But West Ham were originally founded in 1895 as Thames Ironworks for the area's workers in iron shipbuilding and the docks. The current badge was released in 2016 and is shaped after the ship HMS Warrior, which was built in 1860 by Thames Ironworks. The badge contains the word London, just in case fans forget where the team's based, and it takes inspiration from and is very similar to older badges from the 50s and 60s, and their first badge was the Union flag with the Thames Ironworks initials. Just like before, whizzing through a few others, I quite liked Bayern in 2017, when they made a massive change from this to this, which is similar to Real Sociedad, as you can count the differences between their current badge and the one they used in 1910. The crown above Real Sociedad's badge, which means Royal Society by the way, was removed during the Spanish Civil War but stayed almost identical for over 100 years. Fenerbahce's is pretty much the same as over 100 years ago, and incidentally its name was taken from the local lighthouse, which is why Fenerbahce got its name, as Fener means lighthouse and Barce means garden, so Fenerbahce literally means lighthouse garden. And Olympiakos has also barely changed over the years, with the only real difference being that the athlete on the badge stopped having a 50p head to having a proper shaped noggin. Badges which hint at local legends include Benevento, which contains a witch in reference to the legend of the witches of Benevento. Con's badge revolves around the Vikings, who inhabited the region of Normandy in the past centuries, where Con's based, and the team name itself is taken from a 17th century poet from the area, Francois de Malherbe. AFC Wimbledon have a double-headed eagle, as apparently Julius Caesar once made camp on Wimbledon Common, with the eagle symbol being attributed to him. And over in Deutschland, Hansa Rostock are named Hansa in reference to the area's history as a Hanseatic sea. And don't worry, I had to Google that as well. The ship is called a cog, a typical ship in the Hanseatic League. Dumbarton's badge is an elephant with a castle on his back, as apparently the famous Dumbarton Rock is shaped like an elephant and the castle sits on top of it. I mean, make your own judgment on that one. And St Pauli used the Jolly Roger as an unofficial symbol of the club, which they used as a protest against the establishment, and in the 2001 season it even appeared on match shirts. PSV's badge in 1917 showed a light bulb, as the club were founded by workers at Philips factory in Eindhoven, and this was used at the end of the 2015-16 season on a special Jubilee shirt. Real Madrid had their club initials for the very first badge in 1902, which was later redesigned to a badge which looks very similar to the one used today. Sheffield Wednesday's badge, introduced in 2016, is just the same one recycled from the 50s. The gap in the circle in the Wolfsburg badge symbolises the club aiming towards the top of German football, and this is actually an updated version of the badge used for over 40 years, which had 3 castle towers, as Castle Wolfsburg is nearby. And last but not least, the badge of Linfield over in Northern Ireland shows Windsor Castle because it shares a name of their ground, Windsor Park. It doesn't seem to matter to them that there's about 400 miles between the castle and the club, so that's a bit of an odd one for me. And that's it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, maybe go watch part 1. I mean, if you want. This ain't a sequel, there's no storyline or anything. But if you like my stuff, if you think it's whack and dope and whatever else the cool kids say, then consider subscribing for more dope content. So don't be a dope and smash the subscribe button. Whatever you do, don't ask for part 3, as I'm running out of club badges I find interesting. But above all, see you in the next video. Ciao for now.